Lonnie Wilson, and he's come up with, I think, some real insights which are applicable not only to our presentation today, but many other aspects of our educational experience. And we may have, well, we're talking about knowledge construction and information. Remember we talked about that material culture can move more quickly than non-material culture, and you guys are in the thick of it in terms of the computerization of your generation. But then we have younger kids coming along. And Lonnie's made an observation about that, which I wanted him to share with you and get some of your feedback about it. Go, Lonnie.
Well, I'll start with, how many of you are 18, 19 years old? 21 to 25? There we go, there's the big group. Anybody over 35? All right, we'll leave it at that. How many of you were exposed to computers in early grade school? First, second, third, fourth? Okay. How many didn't see a computer until high school? So my theory was, and some of you, the younger students would help out on this, that when you start using computers at an early age, you haven't actually learned how to process all this stimulation yet. Your brain's still growing. So you're still putting all this stuff together. You dump a bunch of information from this computer. You can see anything you want. All the entertainment you want is right there at your fingertips, and you don't know how to control it yet. Have you seen that? Have you? Does any of you, the youngest students, do you feel like you've had any problems controlling that?
What do we mean by controlling?
Knowing when to turn it off. You get addicted to a game, and you've got the game, you're playing it for hours and hours, and pretty soon your eyes start spinning around, you're tired, you're fatigued, you get a brain. You feel like you're getting an aneurysm. So, this is you not being able to control that. You're not being able to control all this information going in. Right? When I first started back at school, I started reading books, and I could only get through about 20 minutes of reading before my brain was shut down. And I'm just looking at words, and nothing makes any sense. You have to learn how to build that information. I don't know.
It's okay.
So Amanda shared that cartoon with us. What page is that on?
118.
There's a cartoon on 118, which I think kind of speaks to what...
Go ahead.
Can we share that?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so look at 118, everybody. Look at this. I think this up.
All the animal traps.
See?
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. You see the cartoon, and this person is looking around and seeing all these little creatures like flies and so forth being trapped, and animals being trapped in various traps, and sitting back going, you know, why don't they have a clue? And suddenly, then the next final scene, you see that same little person sitting in front of a computer screen, like that. So I think what Lonnie's sharing with that, go ahead.
Well, look at your parents. Your parents, how many times have they told you, get away from that computer? It's gonna cause problems. Many different ways that they would explain that, I can't say.
Yeah, it's interesting, you know, and reaching a point, there was probably the most comprehensive sociological study that's ever been done. And speaking of that, Christian, there's most sophisticated sociological study was done on, and it's called Academically Adrift. And what we're saying is they did it with like 24 or 5 colleges across the country. And what they discovered was that they're having students finishing up their college degrees with very little critical thinking skills, with little comprehensive reasoning skills, and with few writing skills. I mean, these are 4-year college, university graduates. Okay? And so they say, but it doesn't begin there, per Lonnie's kind of suggestion. What's happening is we're getting young kids like coming to a community college or four-year college, many of them have gone through No Child Left Behind program, which is oftentimes teaching to a test, right? So you've got some structure. Other people are providing you with structure. You're not providing it. So your creative thinking, critical thinking, comprehensive reasoning skills, and even writing skills are being thwarted. Your very creativity is being challenged. Other people are so overstructuring your education that you're being left with a lot of these skills. And we have a society that is yearning for, just passionate about the fact they need you to have those skills if we're going to sustain ourselves. There's the one that go into that world and know where they're going. They have a life plan. They have those skills, and they can sit down and a boss can say, "This is what I want." You know, these corporations, they can plug in any cassette into your brain and make you what they want. They think. But to have someone that comes in with a theoretical sensitivity and awareness and looks around and sees patterns and picks up patterns, the things that aren't making that organization function in the way that they want it to function, and that's creativity. That's comprehensive reasoning skills. That's critical thinking. And I think he's made a great point that in many ways, socialization, we're being socialized in this new computer world, cyberspace, that we're just not that prepared for. And it's a great rush. It's a great stimulation. I mean, you can Google up any kind of reality you want. You can Google up a relationship. You can get into a sensate cycling like there's no tomorrow. I mean, you can do whatever you want. But there may be an addictive danger. And even furthermore, there may be a desensitizing. You know, when I was laughing when we saw Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, I love to do this because I look around the room and watch what happens in certain scenes. I've tried to set the stage. And we actually see some people crying. And an Adam's apple going up and down kind of thing. And I go, that's sensitivity. But when you're bombarded with so much stuff, so much violence, for example. We got another Die Hard going on. My God, how many do we need? 14, 15? And so it's like everybody goes in, whoa, special effects are great. I mean, whoa, whoa. But you walk out, isn't there an emptiness in your stomach? What does this mean? We can kill people more efficiently and stay alive, and it's harder to kill us. But I think we have to awaken to the fact that we need to be thinking about these things more creatively. And thank you for sharing it.
Well, I got one more thing to
Good,
share.
go.
I volunteer teaching 4th grade class.
Oh, really? How
So
cool.
it's a lot of fun. In fact, I do it on Thursdays after this. So the teachers give me the students that have the biggest problems learning. I get this little group, and I've learned a long time ago, the best way to learn is to teach.
Oh,
So
yes.
I get a little group that have a lot of trouble, say something in math, and I'll set them in a little circle, and we'll just go around and talk about it. I'll go over everything. I'll take them from the beginning to the end, show them every aspect of what they need to learn, and then I let them do it. Of course they fail. They don't know what they're doing. Then I make them teach each other. I make them make up tests, switch the papers, then they teach each other the test, and then they take each other's test. And then instead of focusing on themselves, they focus on what the other person did wrong. So they're correcting each other and learning themselves. They don't realize what they're doing. They're building all this new information, and all these kids ace their tests afterwards. They go from the worst students to the best students because they learned how to teach, and that's how they learn.
Wow. Well, I think we need to give this guy a hand. So, from my point of view, what Lonnie is doing is what all of us, hopefully one way or another, can be doing. And that is helping us to handle this incredibly rapid informational transition we're going through. And so that we don't become totally mindlessly addictive to it. And we need a 12-step program to back away from. For some of you, you know about the 12-step program, right? So, do you know about the 12-step program?
Yeah.
How many? Does anyone know about the 12-step program? Lonnie, what is the 12-step program?
I don't
Okay. Anyway,
I don't remember details.
okay. Well, anyway, it's just the notion. Alcoholics, they take a substance and they become addicted, right? We've defined it as a dis-ease. All right? Before you were just a drunkard, now you're diseased. This gets into our chapter on deviance. The context redefines that, okay? So what they've developed, two alcoholics, two doctors actually got together some years ago and said, we need some kind of a program to help folks like us, that we can teach others how to de-addict, basically. And so they developed 12 steps away from the addiction. I won't go into all the steps, but Google it up, 12-step program, and you'll see. And what it is, basically, it's very relational. You go around, you connect with people, you tell them there's a lot of forgiveness involved. I was under the influence, boom, 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 I did this, I want to apologize to you, and so forth. And you go through a whole series of processes, and it's all guided by what they call the higher power. Now, we've been talking a little bit about, in the chapter of socialization, how we have all these we're social selves, right? But there is some psychologists and other sociologists who talk about a kind of a transpersonal self. Roberto Assagioli is one of those. That we have something within us and between us that is constantly messaging us about how to weave our way through our world. And and all of our sacred wisdom traditions in one way or another have spoken about it. But even some behavioral social scientists have spoken about it, that if we can get up, it's like climbing a mountain, if we can touch base with this, if you want to call it your intuitive self, your sacred self, whatever you want to call it, but it's a source of wisdom to help us move through all of this stuff. If you can sit down and be quiet through all the stuff that it's so hard to sit down and be quiet, and try to have a conversation or connect with this hypothesized intuitive self, in making some of our decisions, that we're able to move through life in a more efficient and effective way. And a lot of that has to do with what we call our social uniting process. The more we can connect with one another and this higher self, and value one another and this higher self, the more we're going to experience more productive, peaceful, and I would add, purposeful life plans. But what's pulling at us is all these undermining conditions, and Lonnie's beautifully shared with us, is one of those can well be this new, incredibly wondrous technology, which offers us so much. So many gifts it's giving us, our technology. But like many other gifts that we can receive, we got to balance it and keep it balanced. Does that make sense? If we get out of balance with that, like if we get out of balance with nature, it has negative consequences. You think?
There could possibly be a connection to growth of mental illness, too.
Oh, yeah, great point. We'll talk about mental illness, diseases and disorders, but that's a good point. What is a very popular label now for you? I'm bipolar. Definitely bipolar. What does that mean? What does that mean? What does that mean? You explain your behavior by this particular disease or disorder, and it's a disease disorder without balance. Mm-hmm. You're struggling to balance two extremes, right? And of course we get a drug for everything. You drop a few pills and that and it can do some, it can have some positive consequences. But understand that many of these diseases and disorders are social constructions. Mm-hmm. That we've created them to reflect what's going on in our society. And I think, what's that other one that we get a lot of young kids now have activity?
ADD.
I mean,
autism.
What do you think? I mean, part of that is what Lonnie's speaking to, I think. That they're just so stimulated at a very young age that they really don't, so they start vibrating at a frequency which is defined as deviant. In a sense it is, I guess, huh? And so, in the old days, you used to send them home to parents to straighten them out, or used to send them to work with the teachers and so forth. Where do they send them now, mostly? To the nurse.
Yeah.
And where does she send them? To the doctor. The pediatrician. And then they make a scale in terms of you are one of those, and now we're going to put you on a drug. And sometimes they are on that drug for almost a lifetime. So another danger is watch out for some of those diseases and disorders and stand back from them a little bit. And, homosexuality. The consensus of psychiatrists a few years ago in their diagnostic manual was that homosexuality is a disease and disorder. We don't have a drug for it yet to make them normal, but we have all kinds of other things to make them normal. And then they got together on another diagnostic day, and they picked it up, and it said it wasn't in there anymore. Did the behavior change? No. The disease designation changed. But what changed was that people were coming out of the closet like crazy, and and they weren't crazy. It was, we had our entertainers, our directors, our professors, all these people, our politicians even, risky behavior coming out of the closet there. But certainly they were going, these are very successful people. Well, diseases and disorders are supposed to create unsuccessful people. So maybe we got this wrong somehow. And so be careful of some of those social constructions, disease and disorder, because they change. But I think you're right on. We've got a lot of our disease and disorder. Now we can look to society as the causality and how we're constructing our relationships. I'm sorry, Krista, you had a question.
But no, I was just saying, I work in a restaurant. It's crazy how people don't even talk at tables really anymore. Like,
oh, I love that. Yes.
It's like I walk up to the table and kids have their iPods in, and I hand them, color crowns and a little thing to color with, and they don't even touch it. They're just on their iPad or they're on their phone, and it's crazy.
The other is boring. They need to they're speed freaks.
Yeah, it's seriously crazy because you would think the dinner table is where you interact most with each other, and now it's silent. And it's usually mom and dad talking, or mom and dad not talking.
Or mom and dad. Or mom and dad.
Yeah, and I feel bad that I see dads, on their phones, or they're, FaceTiming their family because they're trying to do what they can. It's just crazy, like, how far it's come, And it's going to keep on going. Like, this is going to take off like a rocket, like.
It has taken off like a rocket. You're absolutely right. And so it's an alarming social problem in some ways. And I think we have some sense. So I guess all we can do with social problems in our own, like Lonnie's doing beautifully, in our own social worlds, our little micro-social worlds, if we believe this to be true, that we can look around and figure out how can we reconnect people. See, this is our social uniting process, isn't it? You're describing it beautifully. On undermining conditions, the social uniting is over cyberspacing. And so that can fracture a family because going out to dinner or maybe even eating home, that you get that disconnect going on. And that's so precious, such a precious thing, isn't it? In a socialization process, our agents of socialization are our family. And if they're deleted, in a sense, well then, what's happening? Who's socializing these kids? The media!
And they benefit so well from it, though. Like, for instance, like, we're taught now, when people have their phones out, to try to persuade them to go online and do our survey. Like, right there. Like, oh, do you have an iPhone? Scan this barcode. Like, now we're using it to our benefit, you know what I mean? The company is. So we actually go through classes and we're trained to do that. And so...
I'm getting this in terms of my grandson. I've given you a couple of stories about that. He's kindling it up. My daughter's throwing all this technology at him. And we sit down. I said, "Want to play some baseball?" And okay, Papa, but I want to get back to my. So I tried to get into baseball. How about some soccer? And but it's he tries to placate Papa and kind of meet my expectations, but he's so driven by that, getting in there and just, and that's really non-interactive with human beings. It's interactive with a cyberspace where people are programming us, not sometimes subliminally. We aren't really fully aware of the powerful messaging that's going on. So thank you for initiating this conversation, and I think it's something that we can all look around, and that's the idea of good sociology, is to awaken, open your awareness, and then where you see things that are hypothesis number 2-ing it, disconnecting us in less than peaceful and positive and productive interactions, that we can step in and say, hold on just a second. All right? And how do we take a few steps back from those disconnectings and start reconnecting? Okay, so let's go over quiz number 4.